Alright, we're going to talk about bull turns. Bull turns are a lot of fun because you can go through them many ways. Obviously, the fastest way is going to be similar to what an Indy car would do. You want to look for a smooth line, come in wide, sweep it, and come out as quick as you can. First off, we got to talk about how to come into it though. More than often, it's better to come in sitting down. If you come in standing up and you sit down at your pivot point, it's going to upset the way your bike's handling. You slide out, maybe even throw you up. Bull turns are normally banked, so you can get on the throttle pretty hard. So it's really important that you come in and use a sweeping line. Also, you can notice that if a faster rider or slower rider is in front of you and you want to pass them, you can come in and square it up. Bull turns are great for passing. You can go through them many ways, but typically you'll find that the fastest way is to sweep through it. Next thing is your pivot point. It's the middle part of the turn. It's the transition point. It's a point where you go from braking to getting back on the gas. Since the turn's banked, you can get on it a little harder than a typical flat turn just because of the way the physics are. You got to be careful not to stab the throttle really quick because it's going to want to kick the back end around really quick. So you can't blatantly just full throttle out of the corner. You got to have a little bit of throttle control, but you can get on it harder than a typical turn. Another thing to look for when going through a bull turn and a transition point is to look ahead. You'll see a lot of riders in Supercross, they come through the turn and they're already looking ahead at the next obstacle. It's just like any sport. You go where you look. Whether you're doing a 360 on a trampoline, you're looking over your shoulder to where you want to be. It's the same with motocross racing. You go in there and you look ahead. The slower riders will be looking at their front tire. You can notice this at your local track. And they come out really slow. They go where they're looking. If it's all one motion and you're smooth and you're looking ahead, you go through there really smooth and really fast. When coming out, you can get on the gas and whatever, it depends on what the obstacle is coming out of the turn, but you can really get on it fast. And the harder you get on it as you come down the berm, the more you'll accelerate down the next straightaway. Those are a few techniques you can look for going through a bull turn. It's fun to experiment and it's definitely a lot of fun to pass. Alright, we're going to talk about flat turns. The flat turn we're going to talk about follows a long straightaway. That straightaway is pretty rough and has some rollers into it. I enter the turn standing up. The reason I enter the turn standing up is because I want to be prepared for the bumps. If I was sitting down, my back end would come up and my bike would unsettle. My front end wouldn't go where I want it to go. I come around the inside. The reason I do this is to cut off track distance. Sometimes there's a good berm on the outside, but if you hit the inside, you may feel like you're going a little slower, but you're cutting off real estate. By doing so, it might end up being faster. It's something you need to be aware of and practice as well. Once I enter the turn, I get on the outside of my foot peg, I keep my elbow up, and I get on the throttle smooth. If I would just chop the throttle, my back end would break loose. And if I broke loose and I let off, it's going to come back on me. It's something you need to pay attention to and be careful of. Once I get on the gas smooth, I start looking ahead to the exit of the turn. I start fade wide in the turn just so I can keep my momentum up. It depends on the track conditions. You need to look where the traction's at. Especially on this day, it seemed kind of dry and hard packed, but I was looking for some loam to get on the gas and accelerate through. Once I get through the turn, I look ahead, I start shifting up and looking at the next obstacle. I try to sit down, that way I can get the most traction. If I stand up, it might unsettle the weight of the bike and I might wheelie or get off balance. So I stay sitting down throughout the turn until I hit some bumps or I prepare for the next jump. Those are some of the techniques that I use going through this flat turn. It's something that can be a lot of fun if you practice, and it's definitely a hard trick to master. Alright, we're here in a rutted turn. They're tricky, and there's a lot of techniques that we can go over that can help. First thing is entrance. You want to make sure both wheels get in the rut. If your front end gets in and your back end doesn't and you get on the gas, you're going to slide out. Or if you go into the turn too hot and you're aiming for the rut and your front end misses it and you're thinking you're in the rut, you're going to slide out. So obviously you want to get both wheels in the rut, and next thing you want to get on the gas, but you want to get on it hard but you want to get on it smooth. If you get on it and just punch it, you're going to unsettle your weight. It's going to stand you up in the rut, possibly even blow the rut, or unsettle your balance, and you can't accelerate through the turn. You have to be pretty smooth through it. Some of the turning techniques that you can use in the rut is you want to be straight up and down with the bike. And whether the rut's pretty leaned over from the faster riders or straight up and down from slower riders, you go with the bike. So if it's a straight up and down one, you stay straight with the bike, go around the turn in the rut. Or if it's leaned over, you lean over with the bike, staying straight up and down. That way you accelerate through and your pegs aren't dragging, or it's not going to want to stand you up. So it's a balance thing. One of the biggest mistakes I make riding back east, I didn't grow up in ruts, so I struggle with them, is looking down my front fender in front of me. It's just a tendency. Ruts are kind of scary, you know. It's for riders that don't ride in them all the time. It's really crucial to look ahead. You can go faster than you think once you start looking ahead, because you're not worried what's in front of you. You just kind of go through it. Once you go through it and you're patient and you get on the gas like we talked about, you'll carry good exit speed and you can get down the next straightaway really fast. If you come in really fast, get on it and choppy, you're going to screw up all your momentum in the turn, and then you lost all your momentum down your straightaway. So it pays off to be patient in the beginning and to do all the techniques right to connect everything on the whole track. And in the end, you'll make up a lot of time. So this is a rutted turn, so a few techniques on how to improve your rutted corners. We're going to talk about stand-up sweepers. This sweeper was pretty tough. It had a bank on the edge, and it was really fast. It was a fourth gear straightaway. Main thing for me is I stayed in the attack position through the whole sweeper. I didn't want to be too far because my front end would dive on me. I didn't want to be too fat back on the bike because my front end would push. It was really important that I stayed balanced on the bike so I could accelerate through the whole sweeper. The other reason I wanted to stay neutral on the bike is so I could absorb any bumps that sweeper had. It was starting to get rough at the end of the day, and your bike would unsettle. If I was sitting down in that same sweeper and I was accelerating on it, my back end would hit one of those bumps, it would get out from underneath me, and I'd be out of control, and I'd blow the next turn, the next right-hander. So some of the things that were really important was to accelerate through it, be in the attack position, stand up and absorb the bumps, and get to the next turn as fast as I could. If I would let off while I wasn't accelerating, my bike would kick, and my bike would react in a weird way. So it's really important that you keep the throttle on constant. You don't have to be wide open. You don't have to, be full throttle, but just maybe keep it on smooth. That way the bike stays balanced and accelerates the next turn. Those are some of the things you can look for in stand-up sweeper turns.
Yeah, Lil J on the track, nigga. Hey, it's time for all the security. Get around. It's going down.
Well, I'm a gat-toting, pistol holding.